Nice team you got there.
Yeah, I'm thrilled, man. You can feel the energy.
The excitement's great. Are you at Maple Leaf Square right now?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm in the middle of the crowd. It was the quietest place I could find to do this recording. So
Oh God.
You had a good column over the weekend after that Game 4 loss, basically just saying, you can recycle all the Leafs narratives you want, but like maybe at the end of the day, this team just like isn't that good. And
yeah,
a few days to process it. Is that where you're landing at this point?
it's kind of where I've been for a little while. And look, first of all, I'm not saying that if part of the story here is they're just not as good as we think, that means that none of the rest of it matters or none of the rest of it can be true too. You can still have they don't want it bad enough. They don't have the heart. They don't have whatever narratives you want to throw at it. Go ahead. But I've just been looking at this, and this has been for a few years now, where year after year, this team, they come out, they have a good regular season, but it's a good regular season. How many President's Trophies have they won? How many times have they gotten close? They usually finish second, third in their own division. Kind of in that middle of the pack of the top 10 teams. This year, they weren't even that. They finished 10th in the NHL. A team that finishes 10th in the NHL, losing the first round of the playoffs, is not a shocking result. And I think that part of the issue with the perception of this team is maybe we've just been pumping them up so much over the years, and maybe too much. And I get that people are going to kind of roll their eyes and go, "Yeah, well, that's Leafs fans, that's the Leafs media, right? There's no team in the league that gets more attention." And yeah, granted, Leaf fans tend to overrate their own team. That's sports. That's every fan base in every sport. And maybe the media plays into that. But I also think some of it has come from the other side of it, where it's just more fun to knock these guys down over the playoff thing if we pretend like they're a juggernaut that should never be losing. And the reality is, you go back year after year after year, other than Montreal, you could make a case that the Leafs weren't the best team in going into any of those series. Forget about how they played when they got there. They haven't had home ice in the vast majority of the series, and even in the ones where they have, they've been facing a team like a Tampa that was a 3-time conference champ. Maybe what we are seeing here, in addition to maybe some of the other stuff, is just a team that is a slight underdog losing, which is what slight underdogs are supposed to do.
Yeah, I think that with sports commentary, it's always easier to ascribe intangible things because we can't fucking skate. We can try though, so we say they must not be trying, things like that. I never buy any of that shit because I think that Auston Matthews, I think that they all want it. The only intangible area that I think fucks them is they're stupid. And that actually, I think like really is a real thing. I just wrote down the last 2 minutes. Benoit puck over the glass in Game 3. Samsonov on the Frederick goal in Game 3. Keith keeping the same guys out there when Boston changed after the Bertuzzi goal in Game 3. Tavares penalty at the end of Game 3. Nylander holding penalty in a 2-goal game when you're finally sustaining pressure at the end of Game 4.
And that doesn't even mention the word Max Domi.
Yeah, like Max Domi, I kind of he's trying to do something that he doesn't do as well as the best player in the world at doing it. So he's at least fucking trying, but you could also lump him in there. Is it just more like the DNA is stupid than the DNA doesn't want it bad?
I mean, yeah, I'm with you on that point. I would reject the idea that they don't want it bad enough. I mean, you look at Mitch Marner, a guy that he's the lightning rod in this series. He's the guy that it's all getting dumped on. I mean, he is getting absolutely savaged from all corners, Toronto and elsewhere. And we've seen this building up for years and years and years. I've been watching Mitch Marner in the playoffs. At least once a series, this poor guy looks like he's going to cry on the ice. Okay. And I don't mean that as a knock, as to diminish him. He clearly wants it so badly that he doesn't handle it well when the adversity comes and he's not getting what he's looking for. And these other guys, I mean, look, they're yelling at each other on the benches. People are making that up to be a big deal. Good. I'm glad they're yelling at each other. I'd rather see them yell than just staring off in the middle of the distance like we sometimes see with them. So they want it. I just don't think they know how to translate I want it into here's what I need to do to make it happen. I do think that there's a difference between wanting it and knowing what level you have to get to effort wise. In the playoffs where it's all more physical and every inch of ice is contested. But yeah, the stuff that you talk about, the stupid stuff, let's just say it. This is not a well coached team. Not in the playoffs, at least. And that's another part of it. I talk about them being maybe not as good as we think. They've been outcoached in pretty much all these series. Sheldon Keefe got outcoached by Dominic Ducharme. Like, do you even remember that guy? When was the last time you even thought of him? And he coached rings around Sheldon Keefe. And I get that, look, it's Toronto, and there's a certain element where you want some stability. But that change is going to happen unless something really radical happens in the last 3 games of this series. They don't. You're right. I mean, the mistake, the bad play, the overplay, the hit when you shouldn't throw the hit, passing up the hit when it's right there. It always seems to happen with this team. But you know what? There's a lot of mistakes that happen in the playoffs, and when you make mistakes and your team wins, it all gets forgotten. This team just never wins. So
Jeremy Swayman made bad mistakes in game 1. And who fucking cares about that?
Yeah.
He played a good game and the Bruins won, and then you move on.
I mean, this might be a stupid question based off of everything we've already discussed, but like, is there any hope for Toronto? Like, what is the temperature? I know like things aren't going well, but we've discussed like that team has been stupid. What if they stop being stupid? And famously, the Bruins last time they had a 3-1 series lead didn't end well for them. So is there any sort of hope?
Peter, I think you're being stupid by thinking they're going to stop being stupid.
Probably.
I mean, is there any? I will say that obviously the feeling in Toronto and among Leaf fans is extraordinarily negative right now. I don't think you talk about fan bases are always overly optimistic. I don't think that's the case. But is there hope? Yeah, and I'll leave Leaf fans with this. Now that I've kicked the team when they're down and all of this, there is a very lazy narrative that gets trotted out in sports a lot, especially with this Maple Leafs team, where people say when the going gets tough, they fold. And I can tell you, when it's the Toronto Maple Leafs, the opposite has been true.
Mhm.
This over this time, this era, it's when the going gets tough, that is when suddenly they flip a switch, and you see it at a micro level in individual games. They're terrible, they're terrible, they're terrible. They're down 3-0, and then suddenly you blink and it's 3-3 again because they flip the switch and they come back. Remember when they're playing Columbus and they're facing elimination and they're down 3-0 and there's 4 minutes left and everyone's already written the obituaries. And they turn it around and they win that game in overtime. They did it against Tampa last year, right? They had the big comeback win.
Even Marner in game 4. Like Marner scores a sick goal after having 2 of the worst periods that you can see.
It just keeps happening. Every time everyone's down on this team, the Morgan Riley thing this year, he gets suspended. Everybody's talking, look at the Leafs. They're getting all upset over an empty net. And they run off 5 wins in a row. As soon as you count this team out, that's when they play well. The problem is it's the exact opposite. It's as soon as things are going good, they can't wait to pat themselves on the back, hang the big mission accomplished banner in the background, and then that's when it all falls apart. I mean, this team famously lost to a Zamboni driver. Well, when that happened, everybody was like, and if you remember, it was right before the trade deadline. Everybody's like, break up the team, forget it, don't bring in any reinforcement, get rid of everybody. And then they went into Tampa, which was in the middle of having a 60-win season, and they beat the Lightning, that team that's supposed to be unbeatable at home. They keep doing it. So it would be extraordinarily on brand for this team right now when we're all counting them out. Everybody's already written the stories about how it's all going to get blown up, to go out, play their best game of the season in game 5, probably come home, play another great game in game 6, bring it to 7, and then probably go out and lay an egg because they would have won 2 games in a row. What do you want them to do? Like try hard for 3 in a row? You can't do that. So, that would be more on brand than going quietly and just, letting us at least have a quick, painless, fast series for a change.
I'm so glad you finished that thought, because prosperity is real. Like, that's been their enemy more than anything. Like it is when things are going well. Even the Nylander holding penalty in Game 4.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, you're finally pushing. You're finally having sustained pressure. You're scoring goals. It looks like Swayman looks like he actually has to do a lot of work right now.
How do we
never
ruin
mind.
it?
How do we torpedo it in the offensive zone? My thing, like, I'm sure, like any hockey fan, a dumb offensive zone penalty fucking infuriates me. And if I were a coach, I would lose my mind over it. But the Leafs have a coach already that is making me lose my mind. So it goes straight to the top. Pete wanted to discuss potentially, do they blow it up? You mentioned Keefe probably goes, but who else could go? Marner's entering the last year of his deal. Tavares is entering the last year of his deal. Defense sucks balls. Goaltending sucks balls. What do you do about that sucking?
Well, I mean, it'd be nice to focus on the goaltending for once and not try to do the bargain bin, but they don't have a ton of cap room to address that. You talk about what does blowing it up look like? Let's go to the very top with Brendan Shanahan, who is in a situation where I think there's a pretty solid chance that if this series goes the way it looks like it's going to go, that you could see a change there. And I say that as I got a lot of time for Brendan Shanahan. I think he came into an absolute mess, and I think he's done far more good than bad for this team. And I think, if anything, his fatal flaw, if this is it, is going to be that he was too loyal and too believed too much in the group that he had put together. But the thing that you got to remember, you got to know if you're outside of Toronto, is there's a new boss at Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. They've hired a new CEO, and this guy apparently who's coming in is someone who sometimes likes to be a little bit hands-on. So it is very possible that he will say we're blowing this thing up from the very top. And if Brendan Shanahan is gone, Brad Treliving, who knows? Even though it's only been 1 year, somebody new might want their own guy. Sheldon Keefe, you can't imagine a situation where he would stay. And then, it becomes, what do you do with the players? Because these guys, they all make a lot of money. William Nylander and Auston Matthews are signed long-term. John Tavares has got 1 year left. Could you try to push him out the door? You probably could, but that's going to be an ugly situation. Mitch Marner is the one that a lot of the focus is going to be on, but he's got a no move clause. And if he's a local kid, and if he decides he doesn't want to go anywhere, who knows where that goes next? And he needs the extension. Could you see the team let him walk out the door? Or are they going to do what they've done time and time again over the years, which is talk a good game and then eventually fold and give the guy every penny that he could wish for? It's tough. This is the NHL. It's not a Toronto thing. This is a hard cap league where lots of guys have long deals and no trades and all this stuff. It's a league that's almost designed to be hard for teams to make big brave moves. But as I wrote last year, as they were in the middle of losing the Florida Panthers, look at what the Panthers did after a President's Trophy season where they won a round of the playoffs. It wasn't good enough. And they went out and they got Matthew Tkachuk and they changed coaches and they did all this other. Like, it is possible. It's a philosophy, but it is possible to say good enough isn't good enough. The Leafs have refused to make that choice for years and years and years. And now it looks like they're probably going to have it made for them by some new blood at the top of the chain, potentially all the way up to the very top.
Let me ask you this question. Me and DJ has kicked around the idea of a Seth Jones trade. As a Leafs fan, what would your appetite be for, like, a Seth Jones for Mitch Marner, the bones of that kind of swap?
Not bad, huh?
I'd have to look at the contract situation. The
money's
Seth
similar.
Jones isn't one that excites me a ton, even though he's been better the last few years in Chicago. I know someone else floated. Clayton Keller was another one, and obviously, look,
if you are the former Coyotes, I hang up the phone so fucking fast if that trade is proposed to me.
Why you got to do that to me, man? Why
I
can't you give me
fucking
at least a
punt the
little?
phone a mile.
I hang up the phone so fast.
I drown I die taking the phone into water to drown it.
All
and
right.
I electrocute myself to death.
I'm going to put you guys down as a maybe on that one. And we'll yeah, I mean it's going to be something like that, or maybe it's draft picks or whatever. But again, he's got the no move clause. Maybe Mitch Marner goes, you know, I don't want to go to Chicago and miss the playoffs for a couple of years. Maybe Mitch Marner goes, I wouldn't mind missing the playoffs for a couple of years.
For real, like that should be
go play next to Connor Bedard. There's worse places you could land.
Yeah.
I mean, I wonder the Leafs also, you know, in addition to all the issues on the roster, they've got the cupboard's pretty bare in terms of prospects. They've got no picks next year. I mean, this year they've got a few, but they've got nothing next year. They've already traded their 2025 draft. So, you know, maybe it ends up being a picks and prospects deal, but you know, who's out there lining up for a guy who makes 11 million, doesn't really live up to that number now, and God knows what number he's going to go into negotiations expecting, you know, knowing some of the people around him and what they might tell him to be asking for. So there's going to be some teams that say, I don't want any part of that, which is crazy because we're still, you know, for all the flaws and for all we're talking about a guy who puts up 95 points a year. Boy, you'd think there'd be a lineup, but
so that's what I was going to say. We have begun talking about Mitch Marner as though this is a Milan Lucic for James Neal, bad contract for bad contract kind of thing.
Yeah.
No disrespect to those guys. Mitch Marner is an awesome player. And for as much as, like, sometimes when I watch Giannis, I'm like, Giannis is the worst, best player I've ever seen in my life. Mitch Marner isn't quite that because he doesn't have like the tippity top end that Giannis has. But Mitch Marner's like that. He is, in everybody's mind, the worst very good player in the NHL or worst awesome player in the NHL. As long as his next contract isn't outrageous, like, I would take that guy on my team, but it's just kind of like a mid-career Phil Kessel situation more than it is, this is the face of the franchise, this is who you're building around.
I mean, he's been phenomenally productive. Guy was a first-team All-Star back-to-back years.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of legendary players who never did that. And you know, look, I'll say it. It's the fact that he's getting criticized right now is absolutely fair. The volume of it is over the top. He's become the lightning rod, and you know, it's because Nylander's got his ridiculous new contract, and Matthews isn't going anywhere, and so it's. I mean, this is the guy who's going to wear it, and yeah, some of that is on him. And hopefully, when he sat down and signed that $11 million deal years ago, that was kind of unprecedented as far as being a second contract for a guy, given where he was at. Hopefully he understood what it came with, and hopefully he understood that this was a potential, way that this was all going to go. But yeah, this idea that he's some sort of bum that you trade for Seth Jones, or the idea that you hang up the phone to trade a guy, Clayton Keller, who's a really good player, but is like a 70, 80 point guy, and that you would never even think about flipping him for a 100-point guy. I mean, the guy is taking a beating right now. Some of it deserved, some of it not. I will say this. There is not a Leafs fan out there, and I am including the many, many Leafs fans who are absolutely done with Mitch Marner and want to wash their hands of him. There's not a single fan out there that thinks he's going to go to another team and be a bum. Everybody understands that wherever he winds up this offseason, assuming he does go somewhere, he'll light it up for that team. And he'll probably go into the playoffs and win a Conn Smythe at some point. You know, that's just the way it goes when you're a Leaf. So they go somewhere else and they turn into Zach Hyman. That's
I was just about to say it. I was like, fuck, man. So, far be it for them to lose another wing that goes someplace and is just fucking incredible. Also,
but you know what? Good for him. If that's what happens, if all you got to decide, whoever's making these decisions for the Leafs in a few weeks, is it going to happen in Toronto? And if not, hey, good luck, local kid. You gave everything you had. It didn't work out. We want it. We hope it works out for you somewhere, preferably in the Western Conference, and we never have to run into you in the playoffs when you're winning those multiple Conn Smythes you're probably going to get.
So you think the series gets extended, though?
Not necessarily, but I do think that everyone who's slamming the casket down, it would be out of character for this Leafs team to go quietly until it was a make or break Game 7. But we'll see. I mean, it's bad right now. It is. I don't think even in all of the various permutations we've seen over the years that I've ever seen a Leafs team getting slammed this bad. I would assume that that they can feel that. You try to insulate from it as best you can, but I'm sure they're aware of it. If they just throw up the white flag, it wouldn't shock me. But again, if we're sitting here talking about, wow, it's a Game 7 nobody saw coming, don't say that, because some of us won't be shocked if there's one more twist of the knife in it for us.
Last question from me. Did Auston Matthews take like a cyanide pill or something? What happened?
We would love to know, wouldn't we? I mean, he finally has the Auston Matthews game in the playoffs that we've all been waiting for years and years in Game 2. Just that game where he's just him and goes, yeah, you know what? I don't think we're going to lose. And I'm the best player on the ice, and I'm just going to... And you're, as a Leafs fan, you're going, oh, finally. Oh, we've been waiting for this. And then, yeah, sure enough, whatever. I don't know if he got the same, I don't know. I can't even think of what can make you sick enough that you can still play, but then you get, I've never heard of a player getting pulled from a game for illness. And I'm not trying to joke about it. Obviously, he doesn't have the sniffles here. And, there are some things you can run into problems with dehydration or, stuff like that. It's no joke if you're getting pulled from the game, and he's not practicing today. So who knows? I don't know, man. Between William Nylander's headaches and Auston Matthews' illness, it's I don't know, maybe the hockey gods are trying to tell us something.
It would be fitting that, like, for all the Leafs players that have shit their pants in the playoffs before, that like it comes to an end with one of the players literally shitting his pants,
literally doing it. Maybe that's it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, famously, there was the Tuukka Rask thing that happened.
Not in the playoffs, before the playoffs.
Yes, essentially a play-in game.
Mm-hmm.
They were better in the third period without him. Could we start that narrative?
There we go. Yeah.
And it goes back to what you said earlier. It's like as soon as the adversity hits, they become a good team.
And I like that.
Sure. I mean, look, if Auston Matthews doesn't play on Tuesday, maybe William Nylander's headaches come back and he does. I mean, everybody in the world will be like, they're going to lose 10-0. That would be the game for them to go out, play 2-1, 15 shots against whoever the goalie is, Joseph Wall or Samsonov or Zamboni driver, whoever it is, it stands on their head. And we're all sitting there going, wow, what is it with this team? I'll tell you what it is. They hate us, and they want to take us on as much of a roller coaster as they can before they finish us off.
Well, they're a very fun team, and everyone's rooting for them, and everyone likes them so much. So we're glad.
Yeah, lots of spaces on the bandwagon, everybody. Now's the time.
We all silly like the mayor.